Mm. Hello. Hey, E. See, it just come on. There you go.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you totally fine.
Okay, great.
Oh, I'm so happy to finally meet you virtually.
I know. Thank you, Drew.
So tell everyone who you are, where you are, all that good stuff.
Who am I? I'm Beyonce. Um, no, I'm Tory Devon Smith. I am an actor, and I grew up in Bakersfield, California. I came to LA in 2005 on a full ride scholarship to Loyola Marymount University to study.
Okay.
I know I got the money. Um, and I've been here ever since, and I've been a struggling working actor for so long now. I had a big break in 2015, which really opened the door in my career.
Hmm.
And I am recently, well, now I'm producing and creating a project called the Baldwin Archives, which is
Hmm.
based on Baldwin. And that is the reason I'm here with you today.
Yes. One of my one of my favorite parts of my job is that I basically just slide into people's DMs all day, every day. Um,
That's so
that's
great. I
basically,
love it.
if people are like, "What do you do?" I just basically slide into people's DMs all day. But I came across um, I don't know if it was like a sponsored post or somehow I just came on my feed and
Yeah.
I was like, this is really interesting. So then I went in and I was like, oh, okay. And then I messaged you and you were so lovely and you agreed to come on today. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I'm so happy you asked.
One of the things that when we were talking and exchanging emails and you was like, did your email say Prince?
Well,
When we were
I thought it was Prince because I was like, maybe he left off the E. Because now we all we doing is communicating through this, and
yeah.
you leave off, periods and ascertain. Maybe Prince, not
Yes, yes. I get that. I've gotten that before from my business email. But it got me thinking about Prince was and still is. But for me, it was like he was the first person, especially growing up. Like I didn't have that many role models, um, and the Prince was the first person, black man that I saw that was like, oh, it's okay to be black and different. It was okay to kind of, not be this kind of whatever people thought it was was allowed to be black. You can be a little weird. It's okay for you to think outside the box.
well,
And then
yeah, because that perspective was always given to white people. They were able to be
yeah,
alternative. We were never able
yeah,
to be alternative. They're
no, no,
to being any human being, but especially to
yeah,
in a sense, being black. I mean, there's
yeah,
so many varieties of us.
yes, yes. And it wasn't until I discovered James Baldwin that I started reading books, and I was like, oh, where have you been all my life? I wish I got this book so I guess I wish I started reading him so early on because then maybe things would have been a lot different. It's just my mind was blown. So at what age did you discover James Baldwin?
Well, it's so interesting. I didn't discover James Baldwin until I guess you could say recently. Um,
Oh,
and this has been some years now, but
yeah, yeah.
my first introduction into a nuanced perspective of a black gay experience, male particularly, was Elaine
Mm.
Harris. So I read
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
Harris.
yes.
Come on now, he is
Yes,
musical.
yes,
I,
yes.
watching them BET videos, out loud, and I'm like, oh, I'm reading a novel. Um,
I totally forgot about yes, Eli Harris. I mean, there was so many books. They were just yeah.
Well, not only that, it was also like I was coming at a time of coming sort of to um, my homosexuality was bubbling up at that time. So you're trying to
Mm,
figure out ways to try to connect and educate yourself in terms of like what it is.
yeah,
We don't get to experience, at least our generation, didn't get to
yeah.
experience how to sort of navigate being a homosexual romantically,
Mm, yes.
really
Yeah.
without an Elin Harris, without a James Baldwin. You know, we
Yeah.
have to find particular people and
Hmm.
groups and communities to understand how do we do this? What do we do?
Yeah.
It's much different now, I think. Much.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
these young kids, they're coming out on YouTube and they 12, and I'm like, what? But
Yes.
I didn't discover James Baldwin until sort of recently. And I saw a YouTube clip of him on the Dick Cavett show because there's so much
Mhm.
material of him on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I've heard
Yeah.
of James Baldwin. I just didn't know exactly who he was. And then my
Mm,
friend Cameron Johnson told me, I said, I'm interested in this guy, James Baldwin. He was like, oh, read Giovanni's Room. And that was sort of my first intrigue into James Baldwin. And then,
mhm.
you know, the clouds opened
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and there he was. And also,
Mm,
too, I was looking for subject matter to sort of researching particular subject matter that would be intriguing to me to try to create something with,
mm,
whether it was sort of a film or a play. I wanted someone with gravitas, someone who sort of had a built-in
mm,
audience too. And I was looking for something that would be particularly Black and gay.
mm.
Or, you know, and what's interesting about Baldwin was he wasn't a self-proclaimed homosexual. So truly sort of Black and queer, really.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and then seeing this clip of him, he was so charged. He was so intense. You know, this little Black man is telling this white man off on this show in a way that I'm like, wow, this
Mhm.
seems, and not only that, exceeding this man's intelligence in front of him. He's the
Yeah.
smartest man in the whole entire studio.
Mhm.
I was like, who is this guy? And then
Yeah.
I had Giovanni's Room, which is such an elegant, beautiful love story. Um,
Mhm.
and then I became interested in his life. I was like, who is this man? And then to find out all these things that I found out, you know, him being gay, him being an expatriate, well, not gay, queer, him being an expatriate, him writing all of these really sort of controversial works, how ingrained he was within the sort of the glitterati of famous people in Hollywood and France and Indonesia. And I was like, oh my God, he lived like 1,000 different cool lives. And he did
Mhm.
that being like some small little Black gay dude. I was like, you did this in 1940, 1950. What?
Yeah.
So his life was just sort of inspiring and extraordinary to me. Something I didn't even think that was sort of possible. Yes, for like a
Mm.
few of our icons, I thought, of course, especially
Yeah.
sort of more so in entertainment, because we all watch Lynn Whitfield, Josephine Story.
Yes.
We know about Josephine Baker, and she had this extraordinary life.
Yes.
Well, who else? And then I found
Yeah.
someone who was like us. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
how cool.
Yeah.
So,
And so when did you, like, you were looking for something that you wanted to do? Like, when did it click that this was it? Like, did you have like an aha moment? Like, this is the project that you want to do? Like, you want to work on this for this short film? Like,
well, I'm actually a part of a group called BGB.
mhm. Okay.
Um, it's called Black Gay Brunch, and it's actually a group of gay Black men who are in the entertainment industry. This is sort of, again, started by my friend Cameron Johnson, who is, he was writer on Empire, really talented man. And basically, he wanted to start a group where we as Black gay men in the industry can come together and
Mhm.
just be with one another.
Um,
Because we
mhm.
don't have that opportunity
Yeah.
in our work lives, maybe even in our
Mhm.
personal lives. But
Yeah.
because I was interested in Baldwin from the clip and from the book, I started to talk to the men in that group in terms of, hey, do you think this might be a good idea to maybe try to do a James Baldwin? At first, it was sort of a one-man show. It was going to be a play I thought of. So I thought about a play. I
Mm.
thought about like, should I write it? You know, so it was really other gay Black men that gave me encouragement and the confidence. One of my friends, Scotty Brown, actually recommended a biography of James Baldwin. He says, start there. And so I started
So,
with biography. So then my investigation on James Baldwin primarily became about his life, not so much about his work, actually. Um, and of course, there's just a litany of so much material out there on the internet in terms of videos and whatnot, and archival footage. So it was really my brothers that said yes, and here's how you.
that's even, I mean, yes, that's even more beautiful because like it's the sense of community to have you behind you to be able to say like this is what you should do and kind of point you in the right direction,
Yeah,
which is nice. We need that.
absolutely, absolutely. We need that encouragement, especially now more than
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, more than ever, exactly. Um, and so, what when you were going through everything about his life, was there like what was the most like surprising thing that you learned about him?
Well, the most surprising was that he wasn't this self-proclaimed homosexual. That
Hmm.
he had a variety of relationships. I mean, they was mostly with men, but he had a really interesting personal life.
Hmm.
And what I discovered that was interesting was the fact that there was a lot of parallels with my life and his, and I think a lot of gay Black men could relate. Even
Yeah.
gay Black men could relate. Even writers, those in literature, could relate to him. So I want to say it's particular, but it felt particular to me anyway.
Hmm.
We both grew up in poverty, basically. He was the eldest of 9 kids in Harlem, in the late 1920s. I mean, he started school at the beginning of the Depression. So just imagine,
Hmm.
and being
Yeah.
Black and poor in Harlem. I mean, that must have been pretty, in a sense, traumatizing. And I myself, I'm a product of the foster care system. So I was a foster kid my entire sort of childhood.
Hmm.
Um, there's also a really special teacher in James Baldwin's life. He called her Billy, and he was in grade school. She took him under her wing and took him to movies and plays. So he
Hmm.
got to sort of experience a life outside of his home that was pretty extraordinary to him at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and she was a white woman, and that very much happened to me. There were teachers who took me under their wings
Yeah.
and said, "Oh, I see something special in you. Let's help you because you seem as if you want it. You may not have
Hmm.
the support." Um,
Yeah.
that was really interesting to me. Of course, he left Harlem. Um, and he went to France, back in the early 40s to experience a life outside of his hometown,
Yeah.
something I did. And he was very much criticized for his homosexuality, how naturally open he was about his queerness, something that I very much experienced too. It's interesting, and I always talk about this. Sort of the premier representation of gay Black men that has garnered a lot of acclaim has been something like Moonlight.
Hmm.
That film is the most revered modern representation of Black gay men. It's
Yeah.
a particular gay Black story, and I went out for that. Everybody know I went for Moonlight before it was like Moonlight. It was just a script going
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is nice. Of course, I wanted to be Black because I was like, oh, that's gonna be cool. I'm gonna get some big ass muscles and shit. I'm gonna be Black. I'm gonna be Black. Uh, I thought the script was so beautiful. But
Yeah.
anyway, Moonlight is like the one interpretation for gay Black men, sort of currently, and it's interesting because that particular story and those particular characters, I'm like, in my hometown, y'all would pass. Y'all wouldn't have a problem. I
Yeah.
was a naturally effeminate boy.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
still couldn't help doing that. I can pretend and try, sort of transform myself into other people that I know, you know what I mean? But for me, naturally, I couldn't help but be
Hmm.
that effeminate
Yeah.
thing. And I wanted to find, and I feel like James Baldwin, he wasn't sort of extremely effeminate, if you will, or sort of even flamboyant, but he was at times, and he couldn't help but being who he
Yeah.
is. When he gets into like a heated argument or whatever, you can see him like his arms are flailing. He is intent,
Yeah.
and it's like he can't help but be himself. He is not going to sort of code switch at all. Not when
No.
his true being comes out of him. I like
Hmm.
that about him.
And he does it with grace. Like he's just so like it's just so like he's gonna read you, but it's just so like
Yeah,
it's so like it's just like did he just say what I think? You just kind of like it catches you off guard because he's not becoming an angry black man. But he's gonna let you have it and he's gonna speak his mind.
my friend Shockey said because his intelligence is
Yeah,
undeniable. That's what it is.
yeah, yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah. And I think there's also one of those things where you have to for a long time I thought that me being black and me being gay had to be separate. Like they were two separate things. And I remember um I was watching a documentary and for the life of me I can't remember what the name was. And they were talking to like all these like different interviews and asking this black woman and who was a lesbian and they were asking her like so who is the gay Martin Luther King? And she's like Martin Luther King. Like there's no different. He speaks to all of us, and I was just kind of like, I mean, that line just always stuck with me because like there is no different. Like this is who I am. I'm black and I'm gay,
Yeah.
and they don't have to live it separately.
At all. At all. But it's difficult to have those identities live as one
Yes,
in in,
yes,
in this country where
hmm
the history of your people, is involved with such domestic terrorism. Such
mm, yeah,
I mean, I think racism and how us black people have had to endure it in this country. It's when you think about it, it's fucking barbaric. It
yeah,
really, really is. And this shit happened 19. I mean, to
yeah,
be honest, it's interesting.
yeah,
I have conversations with friends, and they say what time period they want to go back to. They're like, I want to go back to like 1820. I want to go back to like 1977. I'm just like, I'll go back to 1993 when I'm most comfortable. I think.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
For
yeah.
so long, we've had to deal with such insane prejudice.
Yes, absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And I mean, and I think that listening to Baldwin and listening to and reading his work and like you said, there's so many interviews and things like that. Like listening to him and hearing him speak is just kind of like it just makes you just it just put me at ease. Like it's just kind of like here's someone who is who is so educated and so like in my mind I just picture him like cutting up and laughing and being like funny and hilarious and all of those things. But here is someone who, especially at the time, like he was not supposed to be.
yeah.
Like he's not like he's not supposed to. He's supposed to be quiet. He's not supposed to be, speaking out and the way that he did, it just warms my heart every time I see him or read something by him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you're in the thick of. So how far along are you into the Baldwin Archives? What stage are you?
In terms of the stage, I mean, you know, the fact that I decided to do a short film and the fact that I
Mm-hmm.
decided to do crowdfunding, that's
Mm-hmm.
the main focus now is getting the word out, and reaching our goal. Um, and so that's sort of where my process is now. In terms of actually trying to capture Baldwin and his essence, I
Mm-hmm.
sort of think I've been doing that the entire time. So, when I first saw that clip of him, I remember naturally trying to you know, imitate him. I was
Yeah.
trying to act like him and the way that he moved and I was like, ooh, this feels like a really sort of fun character. And so
Mm,
at the beginning, you know, at the infancy of my process, it was all just ideas, right? So
mm,
what I had to do was find a way in terms of, okay, so what do I watch? Well, I just started to watch a lot of interviews. I started
yeah.
to watch a couple of documentaries. I started to read that novel. I mean, the biography by David Leamy that my friend suggested. I started to
Mm,
research his work, the people in his life, pictures of his family, of his lovers, of his friends, um, and then find a way in that I felt truly connected to. So
mm,
you start to pick up on certain traits that he does constantly. The way his
yeah.
mouth, you know, stands.
Mm,
What does he do with his hands? How does he hold his cigarette? So, and to be honest, I'm an actor who works from the outside in as opposed from the inside out,
mm,
because I think it's because I've you think about characters even in plays and television during our eras, really, and you don't
mm,
find many people like us. So as
yeah.
an actor, if you're gay and black and flamboyant like I am, you have to transform yourself. So ever since I started
Mm,
acting, that's been my that's been my go-to, because I had to, because there were no other people like me. There were no
yeah.
examples written like me, right? So I had
Mm,
also too, naturally that's how acting affected me. Because of my life as a foster kid, I wanted to go into another world that was unlike my own,
mm,
a bit more positive, something a bit more fantastical. So it was much more it sort of satisfied my imagination to become someone else. I thought that was
mm,
fun. So I'm
yeah.
naturally someone who wants to transform. I'm naturally someone who doesn't want to basically act myself. What's been
Yeah.
interesting, because the industry has been more open, and I'm sometimes very surprised at my experience as an actor, because I get to play a variety of gay characters, or I get to offer a variety of gay men and
Mm,
characters,
yeah.
which is really really cool and wonderful to me. And I have the great fortune to audition for a plethora of different characters in my career, which is
Yeah.
really cool. But to have the opportunity to play and investigate my gay
Yeah.
through other characters is tremendous.
Yeah.
So
Is it more because, he's an icon? Is it harder to kind of like embody him as opposed to like playing a role where it's just kind of, you know,
it's
it's
interesting,
different?
because I'm such a fan of biopics. The thing is, you sort of
Mm,
you have a blueprint. It's all done for you.
yeah.
So there's not a lot of imagination, actually, because there's tons and tons and tons of material.
Mm,
What, you know what I mean? When you come
yeah.
with a character that is not based on anything, it's more so your imagination, then you really sort of have to create who that character is. You might have to do,
Yeah.
you might have to come up with his or her background story.
Yeah.
Do
But people are, gonna nitpick your role or nitpick. They can have like, oh, like, because they have their own idea of who the famous person was or that kind of person. It's like same
Yeah, I
thing with your
think
phone.
there's that pressure. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I'm thinking about this too, because you think about this, you're just like, oh my God, you're going to do this famous person.
Yeah.
Whoa. And he's so revered. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. So yes, the pressure that I feel from other people judging my choices, that's fearful. But what's
Hmm.
interesting is I don't feel pressure sort of within myself. I think it's actually it's experimentation, it's play.
Hmm.
Sometimes I think actors take all this shit too seriously. I'm like, you are getting paid a whole bunch of money to go on a set and play. Fucking
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. So
Mm,
and I'm not putting the pressure on myself to be this exact precise replica. It's
hmm.
interpretation of, because I don't look like him at all. I
Hmm.
don't have his mouth or his nose or his eyes. I mean, he had very pronounced eyes, huge
Yeah.
gap in his teeth.
Hmm.
I have none of that. which is really exciting, with prosthetics and stuff to maybe
Yeah.
transform myself. That's exciting. But personally, I don't feel within myself a pressure. And also, too, I have yet to see any interpretation of someone doing Baldwin. I know that there's been plays,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
theater is something that, not everyone can see. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a cool novelty to have. Like, we're
Yeah.
the first person to interpret Baldwin as a nice thing. Well, great. We'll,
Yeah, I don't think that there's ever I don't think that I've seen anything. I've seen like stuff about Langston Hughes, but I've never seen anything on Baldwin.
and that has a lot to do probably with his estate. I'm pretty sure,
Mm.
I'm not the first person to ever think about doing a
Oh
Baldwin.
yeah, I'm sure.
Come,
Yeah.
I ain't the first. So the fact that I'm doing it now in this sort of short film form feels
Hmm.
feels for one pretty safe to do. I'm not, and also two, the script that I've written for the short thus far, it's not a compelling narrative. There's no beginning, middle, or end. It's just a recreation of an interview. And we're going to
Hmm.
cinematically do something interesting with that. The words that are going to be spoken are his words. So
Hmm.
I do feel safe in the fact that, like, there's no pressure to come up with a story. We're just
Hmm.
rehashing a moment in time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's therefore the experimentation of this piece can play. We can play with where it is. How did he feel?
Hmm.
And we don't have to write anything about that. We can just film it. We can just film
Yeah.
what he was like between questioning. How did he
Yeah.
react to the crew? How did he react to his interviewer? Things like that.
Yeah. And when did and like about what like how long is this whole like how long has this been coming together? Like how like what was it this year, last year? Like when did
Well,
this like what was the time frame?
it's interesting. When I started researching him years ago, I was hoping to write like a feature film. That was
Mm.
what I want. And I'm sorry to say, my black ass can't write. Like, I am not a writer. My my friends, my director Laura C. and even Cameron to a degree, they're like, no, Tori, you can write. But I don't think I do. I don't think I have that particular gift. And to have the pressure of writing a feature film on James Baldwin, I'm like, that should go to someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So what can I do? And that's where the reenactment of an interview came into play, because
Mm.
I did want to be a vessel for him. I wanted to
Hmm.
express what he's done for me. I wanted to pay homage to him. So in terms of the prep, I want to say it started years ago, and then I want to say like a year and a half. I've been talking about doing a short film,
Hmm.
and the pandemic sort of caused an issue. Because I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it's going to cause an issue.
That's an issue.
I guess it's an issue. Um, but I was going to do it actually back in March,
Mm.
and we decided not to because we simply didn't know what this virus quite was back then, and what we
Yeah.
really do with each other. And then it arose out of me again because I thought, okay, we know how to live within this pandemic safely to a degree.
Hmm.
We can be safe about it. And it was so
Yeah.
nice to be creative during this time, because if you're
Yeah.
an actor,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know what's going to happen now. The
Yeah.
industry it's changing because of this pandemic. What's going to happen
Hmm.
to our livelihood now? And this goes for the millions of Americans who are losing their jobs across this nation, and
Yeah.
their futures are now stifled with a huge question mark of when.
Yeah.
So I've been very grateful. It's been a grateful experience to actually be creative, and also something that I have autonomy over. I have some power
Yeah.
over. If you're an actor, you have no control over your how you obtain work. It's nothing you can do. There's nothing
Hmm.
to do to get jobs. It is reliant on other people and a business team,
Yeah.
and there's just nothing you can do. But what you can do is create,
Hmm.
and you can control
Yeah.
that creation.
So we have like the issue of, this issue of the pandemic happening, and then Black Lives Matter happens and like all of this stuff and like all the stuff that you've been researching. How was it coping with all of that? And like you're reading up on James Baldwin, like you're trying to create something. Then the pandemic happened, but then now all of like some of the things that he talked about like, many years ago are still relevant today. We're still seeing it play out in today's society. Like how is all of that happening for you? Or
Well,
coping with all of that?
what I loved about Baldwin in particularly was, you know, unlike the leaders that we've grown to know who are invaluable, the Malcolm X and the Martin Luther.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Baldwin was he talked about the psyche of racism
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
how the effect of that sickness had nothing to do with Black people,
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with us. And as he would say in an interview, you know, he's like, I'm not the nigga you are. And it's about white people. I feel like everything that he sort of expressed in terms of him illuminating issues of the Black
Mm-hmm.
experience sort
Yeah.
of came to light this year. It played out
Mm-hmm.
this year. It's interesting with the movement. What I felt like we were doing was, for one, it was a boiling point,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the innocent murders of Black people, basically since Trayvon Martin. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This year, not only were our lives shifted because of you know, the pandemic, but also we got completely fed up. And not only that, we were all in our houses, like we all had time now to concentrate on,
Yeah. Yes.
you gonna do this
Exactly.
again?
Yeah.
Blow shit up to a degree. That's what happened.
To a degree. Well, I mean, it kind of happened. That's what happened.
And you know, you need that sort of, you do need that radical reaction in order for change to
Mm-hmm.
happen. It's hard because it's just like, well, we're also in a pandemic, you know,
Yes.
to be together, that's also incredibly risky. But I believe in terms of our reaction to it was needed. And not only that, something about what we're trying to do in the modern era, and I could be wrong about this, these are just my damn thoughts, whatever. When you think about the civil rights movement, you think about, you know, there were a group of people, progressive Americans, because the civil rights movement also took nuns and Asian students. The thing about the civil rights movement was they were fighting for rights.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I feel like what we're doing now in the modern era is we're trying to basically rid people of racism. How do you rid people of this sort of irrational behavior? How do you do that? And we're
Yeah.
doing that more so now. And I felt like that's what the movement is. That's what it's really trying to do. We're trying to eradicate racism now, to a degree. And how do you do that? And that's very, very difficult. How do you eradicate learned behavior that has
Yeah.
ingrained in
Mm-hmm.
you know, the fabric of American psyche?
Yeah.
Because you know what always sort of makes me, I always think about this. Every single year, there are several films about the Holocaust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if anyone thinks about the Holocaust, your heart sinks. It is such,
Mm-hmm.
you think about that diabolical thing that these people did to these innocent people. Like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, every time you think about it, I think everyone should be thinking about how Black people dealt with racism here like that. That
Mm-hmm.
empathy needs to transfer.
Yeah.
And I feel like this year, people woke up to that. And also, too, I think a lot of the fight was on progressive, liberal white people to do it. Because Black people,
Mm-hmm.
we've been telling you how fucked up it's been for so long.
Yeah. For so long.
Something
Yeah.
like the civil rights movement should have worked. And it very much helped it along.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, but I think this time round we were saying, hey, white brothers and sisters, your turn. Tell
Mm-hmm.
your people, tell the people in your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
change it. And I think too, the nuance of racism was really understood, because that's something that we go through. You know, even
Yeah.
my gay ass, if I'm walking behind, like I was walking behind a white woman trying to go into the liquor store. I was just going to the store, and she grabbed her purse. And it's so
Mm.
interesting that I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
still have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But
Yes, I mean, it was recently with someone, and I don't know, like maybe because I walk fast or whatever, but I like to think of myself as non-threatening. But hey, like whatever.
to,
Someone like crossed the street. They crossed the street, and I was like, really?
even that
I'm just trying to get some food. Like
I'm
that's all
just
I'm
trying
trying
to
to
get some food.
do.
So even those little things, they start to add up, but they become very uncommon to us. So
Yeah.
the fact that, in particular, white people were sort of surprised at that. I mean, I got so many calls from white folks during the movement. I was just like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, are you
Yeah.
okay? What, you didn't know I was black this whole time, nigga? You didn't know? You gonna ask me now? It's 2020. You know me since 2012. Shut up. But I got it. But that's what I think was really interesting about the movement. It was
Mm.
sort of understanding the nuances of what Black people go through.
Yeah.
It's sort of in every particle in terms of like our way of life. It's everywhere, and they don't.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, even when you think about if you travel somewhere, you got to think about if you're like a white person, you have white skin, you're gonna be okay to go to like Oklahoma and New York. I ain't going to
Yeah.
Oklahoma. I ain't going to the Deep South. I ain't going to Montana. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think.
Uh, so now that the I mean, well, we're kind of in like a second wave. Do you have like a time frame for like when you to complete the project, or are you just kind of taking it?
Well, it's like putting one foot in front of the other. So
Yeah.
hopefully, we raise the funds,
Yeah.
which I'm very excited about. I mean, we've raised over 70% in like a little over 2 weeks. You know,
Wow.
we've raised over $8,000 already. Um,
Has it just been 2 weeks that the campaign has?
just a little over 2 weeks.
Really? I have no concept of time still, so.
Oh, I mean, the outpouring of support has been tremendous.
Hmm.
Because I was basically, I was scared that no one would care.
Hmm.
And also too, this particular project, it's very much of a one-man show. So my face is everywhere. It's just like everywhere. I don't think people want to see me all the damn time. But it's really beautiful because the thing that I loved is I connected with people who are James Baldwin enthusiasts. So it's been
Hmm.
lovely to get those messages and to get those people who have said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited because he's been such a huge part of my life for so long."
Hmm.
That's truly beautiful. You know what I mean? So hopefully we can raise, because I have about 29 or 28 more days to raise the funds on Indiegogo, which is the platform I'm on, and they've been very supportive. They've retweeted me
Oh,
and
wow.
follow me, and I'm so excited because Indiegogo primarily, a lot of what they promote is a lot of technology. That's what that's what
Hmm.
they're raising money for, and films as well. But to get their support, I've been one of the few
Yeah.
have recently gotten their support. That's been really, really lovely. So once
Nice.
the money is raised, which I do think we can get there, I think because we're so close, you know,
Hmm.
a little over $3,000. I'm like, we actually don't need too much to go. Um,
Yeah.
and after, I really want to, because I do have a script written, I want to take some time with my creative team and also get other people on board because we have a very small creative team right now. Um,
Hmm.
and we have more people to get involved into this. We need a gaffer, and we need
Yeah.
crafty and stuff. So we'll get those people. So it's collecting the rest of the team, um, seeing what we want to do with the script, because we can be, if we get more money than expected, we can do some more interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
and really think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give that some time. There's no absolute rush
Yeah.
after the money is raised. It's now about really creating an interesting piece to expose to the world on
Yeah.
behalf of this man we all revere oh so much.
Yeah. I saw a post that you were talking about wardrobe, and I want to say his name is Ryan. Is it Ryan? No,
My costume designer was Alex Nelson.
Alex Nelson. Yes. So what was that like? What did you guys go through in terms of like trying to find out his wardrobe and like find like the perfect pieces to kind of tell the
Well,
story,
it's interesting.
to add to the story?
The first iteration of the campaign video, because I remember I did want to do something traditional where I talked to,
Mm-hmm.
if you make a crowdfunding video to raise money for a film, you usually talk to people and you say, hey, my name is Tory Smith and I'm raising money and blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to do
Yeah.
that. I wanted to do something else. So I thought about this voiceover of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember thinking, I don't want to say nothing. Let's just have James say something. And then my director basically, once I said, I don't want to say anything, I just wanted to be a voiceover of James. My
Mm-hmm.
director found a really great speech of his, and she basically created the concept that you see in the campaign video. And it's
Okay.
interesting. My thought about the campaign video was I thought it was going to be me. So I thought it was just going to be like Tori, the actor, in various places on this pretty hill in fitted pants and a tight shirt to show it off.
Yes.
And then it was interesting because Laura was just like, "Oh no, 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 we're gonna do Baldwin." And I said, "We're gonna do Baldwin." And so she knows Alex Nelson and brought him on board. So
Mm-hmm.
we actually, me and Laura, started to research photos of James Baldwin in various places in his life while he's typing, while he's walking. The
Mm-hmm.
documentary called The Price of the Ticket was a huge inspiration to me and my team watching that documentary. There are moments where he's just walking through France and seeing how he walks, what he's wearing. So we, me and Laura sort of researched the images, gave those to Alex. And it's interesting because Alex sort of dresses like Baldwin would. He's very vintage. And he found
Yeah.
everything at the vintage stores. I mean, some wonderful finds.
Mm.
Wonderful finds. I mean, the shoes, the pants, the plaid, the coat, the suit, the cream suit I love. So it was interesting. I didn't think that I was going to be Baldwin in this campaign. And I actually love that she gave that idea. We did that idea because really that campaign video is sort of a meta experience. It's about the actor preparing to play Baldwin. And so,
Yeah.
where would he be in Paris, if he's drinking tea? He's probably drinking scotch, knowing him.
Can we like, it's just kind of, it's crazy that like, it's like, oh, America's so tough. Like I could just poof, I'm going to Paris. Like I'm just gonna, jet set to Paris. Like
I think that's extraordinary.
it's amazing. Like I think it's so, it's crazy. Like now it's like, you try to like, if you're, in some like one horse town, like you're trying hard to like get to New York or maybe California, but the idea that you could just so easily like uproot your
Well,
life, like move to Paris, like
I mean,
I would, if I could do that now, that would be amazing.
times are incredibly different. I mean, I remember looking
Yeah.
up Sidney Poitier, and Sidney Poitier came from his home country, his home island, and he slept on the roof of a New York restaurant. And then, years
Mm.
later, he's one of the biggest, stars in Hollywood and sort of the 60s. And it's just like, we don't live in that time where we can explore like they
No.
could because it's so expensive. I remember reading
Yes.
Patti Smith's book for kids or just kids. It's about Patti Smith and Robert Mapplethorpe. And I remember reading it. Her and Robert Mapplethorpe didn't even have a dime. They're living in the Chelsea
Yes.
Hotel, like 2 cents a month.
Mhm.
And then here comes Jimi Hendrix and here comes Janis Joplin. I'm just like,
Yes.
you're living my dream for like $2 a year. You can't do that shit. A shack in Venice costs $2 million and it's ugly.
Yes.
We don't have that. We can't
Yeah.
do that unless you
We
have
can.
free money.
Yeah.
Of course you would go to Paris in a heartbeat. I would too. I ain't got that
Yeah.
money.
Sorry.
You know?
Yeah. Uh,
So they
I
were,
mean, and not that, I mean, there was a lot of issues that they were dealing with at that time too. But to be able to pick up and just move to Paris and
to be smart to do that. There was a great migration during his era of Black artists going to
mm,
Paris because, you know,
yeah,
you were unbothered to actually experience your life. You know, Langston
yeah,
Hughes, Wright, Buford Delaney. You think about these artists that went over there. It's like, you know, a part of me feels like, I think Baldwin, and I'm just assuming, he might have had some sort of survivor's guilt, you know? He's
mm,
going over there in France, but he's not on the front lines constantly like a John Lewis. John Lewis,
yeah,
his life, he was getting arrested all the time. I also played
mm.
John Lewis in a play, so I read his
Oh, okay.
autobiography too. So I got a lot of information on the civil rights movement. And so in
Mm.
terms of James, I mean, but you know, he might have felt guilty, but a part of me felt like I would have done the same damn thing. I would have been like,
Yeah,
segregation? No, I'm gonna go to Paris. And I'm gonna go in through the front door and eat some croissants
yeah,
and fuck
yeah.
whoever. And
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, it's the same thing that's happening, now, like where it's hard being an artist, it's hard being a creative, and so especially to be able, especially in New York, like how can you afford to live in New York, and still be a creative? And sometimes you just gotta sacrifice that dream, and you gotta take whatever job you can, just so you can live. So there's a lot of people have, left New York for many reasons, but that's being one of them. Like you can't afford to be able to create art and be creative here because
well, and
the
also
city does not.
we're dealing with the influx of social media. We're dealing with a
Yeah,
higher degree of people wanting to be famous.
yeah,
So that really does interrupt, I think,
that's true.
the true artist. It really does.
Hmm.
You have
Yeah,
you have people who have no actual gift or talent booking great things.
yeah,
They have, and their ego is very much fed because there's a lot of people who like follow them, you know, so they have
yeah,
their own island of celebrity, and then that
yeah.
sort of runs into the Hollywood industry. Well, they're big on TikTok, so they're gonna get the gig of Clueless to a TikTok star. What are you, crazy? So I think what's
Yeah.
really interesting about the pandemic is I've asked myself, because I'm not someone who's really sort of like seeking fame. I think I'm a true actor's actor, and I think this has doing this project has fed my creative soul. And I think, oh my gosh, I just
Mhm.
want this all the time. I just want to create.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, that's been the answer during this pandemic. Like, what do you really love about this story? And it's like it's really
Mm,
me being creative. And I
mm,
hope every artist, like, really, you gotta love what you do above everything. Be in love
yeah.
with it. Don't even think about it sort of to a degree helping you survive, you know?
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard too. That's difficult.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, I think that it's definitely been, especially like now, there's so many people that we know, um, like dancers and performers or even DJs, and like now they're struggling. It's hard because it's like, how do you, as much as you, and we've all had to deal with just like, oh yeah, you have moments where you're creative or you feel motivated, but then you just have those days when you just want to be in bed and not get out, and that's the reality.
It's it,
And not being able to do what you love on a daily basis. Like sometimes there's only so many Zoom dances or Zoom DJ gigs you can do that's going to be able to put food in your mouth or pay your rent.
well, the thing is that it's the offense is compounded because we don't know when it's going to end, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's what's really really difficult to sort of deal with. If you're an
Yeah.
artist and you rely on the world operating in order for you to even have a chance
Yeah.
job, and you don't even know
Hmm.
when it's going to end, this is crushing for a lot of people. I will wake
Yeah.
up with anxiety at 3 a.m. thinking like, what's wrong with me? I'm fine. I exercised. I pooped.
Hmm.
What's wrong with me? And you know, everyone who is
Yeah.
going, we're all going through this together. You need to
Hmm.
realize it's okay to
Yeah.
feel upset and sad and
Mm.
filled with anxiety because this is unprecedented. Be kind
Yeah.
to yourself. If there's one day where you just want to lay in bed and do nothing, do that.
Yeah.
Do that. Be as kind to yourself as possible, you know?
Yeah. That is so true. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have gotten to know you, and I'm so thankful that you agreed to do this. And I'm so happy to I will continue to like follow this journey that you're going to go on. And I'm excited to see the end product when it finally happens.
Yeah.
Um, is there what do you want, or because I mean I'm sure there's a whole generation of folks that don't really know who James Baldwin is.
Yeah.
Um, what do you like? What do you want? Like, have you thought about what you want people to take away from this project?
It's so interesting. I don't think it's my responsibility to sort of influence what I feel people should think about it.
Mm,
Um, that's their job entirely. I think what I do want to happen is that that James Baldwin is now, if he wasn't known to someone, he will be now.
mm,
Then that person goes on and researches this man. It's interesting because I thought he would be, when I found out who he was and I became sort of a fanatic to a degree, he's not in the pantheon of authors that other authors are like we all know about like Sylvia Plath when we grow up, and
yeah,
Keith or Truman Capote and things. But like, why don't we
mm,
know about James Baldwin in the same regard? Why don't we know about his life? Why don't we know about him more? Of course,
yeah,
if you're a part of the literary world, or you've been educated about him in college and whatnot. But I actually think he should be sort of more revered. So the fact that there are so many people out there who don't know who he is, just the fact that I'm putting this out there is going to invite
mm,
people to see, to hopefully go on their own and search him, because he's an extraordinary being. He's an amazing writer. And he's truly one of the most prolific and important thinkers of American history, truly.
mm. Oh, yes, I so agree. Okay, tell folks I'm gonna put the information, the link to the Indiegogo in the IGTV notes, but tell folks where they can find you, learn more about the project and all that stuff again for people who are watching later,
Yeah.
or
So,
the folks that are in the room,
huh?
and for folks that are here now.
Yeah. Go to my Instagram account, so you can follow me at Tory Devon Smith, and I always post about this project there, and also the link is there to my Indiegogo in my bio. Or you can follow my Indiegogo Instagram account at the Baldwin Archives. So follow me there. Also, I have a website, thebaldwinarchives.com. Also, on Twitter, follow me, Tory Devon Smith. I'm posting about it there all the time. I put the video, my campaign video, up on YouTube and Vimeo. So search the Baldwin Archives and you will see the video. And if you go to the website, I'll have the Indiegogo link. So it's a lot of places. So I'll tell you, because you will see it. It's everywhere.
Oh my God, I adore you. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it so much. Um, it's one of those. It's amazing that just a DM could turn into all of it. So I
I
really appreciate
know.
it.
I'm so happy.
um,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you so much. And we have to. I mean, we'll be in touch and just like let me know how everything is progressing, and we'd love to chat with you more as things start to come together. And if you just want to talk about anything, we can do that too.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Well, is it, you're in LA now, so what time
Yeah.
is it there?
Oh,
Is
what
it
is it?
night?
Like 4, 5, what is it? Oh, it's almost 5. So
Oh, okay. So then you have your
yeah.
whole evening.
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa. Yes.
Are you doing anything for the holidays? Are you just quarantining and
Stay in my black ass home. Stay inside. Unless you have to work, stay inside. My God, it's rapidly freaking. People are rapidly getting the virus. Stay
yeah,
home. It's
yeah,
very sad because people might be alone at Christmas, and that's hard. That,
it's hard.
but you want to be
It is
alive
hard.
for the next one. And if we go through this
Exactly.
again, now we know. Make plans in November to go home. You might be with your mama and daddy for a month, but now you know.
And
Stay
now
your
you
ass
know.
home.
I think that's the perfect way to end.
Isn't it?
Stay your ass at home. And make sure you go check out the Baldwin Archives. And of course, I'm going to put all the information in the IGTV like description. So thank you again. It's so lovely to meet you
You
and
too.
to chat with you. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye.
Bye.